Hi everybody, it's Ruth Pringle, your English teacher here in Perthshire in Scotland. And once again I am out and about exploring. This time I'm just outside the city of Perth. I have left my car inside Perth and I cycled out, not really knowing which route I was going to take, but I immediately found a little cycle path which is marked, it's way marked as being the Round Perth cycle ride or cycle path, which I didn't even know existed, so that was a nice find. So it was a nice way to avoid all the traffic. So rather than cycling on a busy road, I just pedalled through a woodland, a nice old woodland. So that was a real bonus. But I've actually reached my destination here today. It's not far, it's about 5 miles outside of Perth, and I am now at Tibbermore Church. Now, Tibbermore Church is a really remarkable place, and I will share in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the things that make it special for your visit to Scotland. It's one of the places that we do take our Immersion English learners when they come to visit us for an Immersion English holiday. We will definitely try to squeeze in a visit to this place. I'm talking to you outside of it, just firstly because it's got this beautiful old graveyard which you can see behind me, and it's obviously an acquired taste, you don't have to, but I do quite like spending a bit of time inside the graveyard and finding out about the people of this community. So there's a grave right beside me which is for a local farmer, and it lists the name of his wife and himself, and his wife outlived him by 50 years, which is just, you know, just even that knowledge gives you an insight into people's lives. If you can see behind me, beautiful Perthshire countryside. Can you see the blue hills in the background? And it's a really nice mild day today. It's towards the end of August now. What is it, the 20th of August? We've had mixed weather for the last couple of weeks, and it's definitely turned autumnal in this region. So as I'm talking to you, it's windy, and there's a few, maybe if I turn around you can see them, there's a few falling autumn leaves being blown off the trees, and kind of, yeah, the wind. And a little bit later in this video I'll show you some berries which are growing in the hedgerows as well. So we are kind of, I don't know if it's technically correct, but it feels like the start of autumn in Scotland here. And autumn, yeah, you don't have bright sunshine like we sometimes get in summer, but it's a lovely time of year to visit Scotland because it's beautiful. The landscape changes into bright colours, and it's a spectacular show, really. If you visit us this autumn, we do have a special offer on, which is an Immersion English, excuse me, we've got an Immersion English holiday which is 30% off, and instead of doing a 50-50 language teaching exploring split, we're actually only doing 30% English language coaching and 70% exploring. So this is for you if you want a kind of English light, English practice without kind of bookwork and the kind of school stuff, the stuff that you have to sit down with a pen and paper and make notes for. It's for you if you just want to have this kind of adventure, exploring Scotland, and with me as your English language coach, helping you through conversations, correcting your grammar if need be, expanding your vocabulary, helping your work vocabulary as well. We can do that. We don't need to be in your workplace to do that. We can do that in a forest, walking along beside a waterfall. So yeah, I'll put the details in this video below. Okay, so while we're here, let's go and explore Tibbermore Church, and I'll tell you a few things about the church as we go. Tibbermore Church isn't particularly remarkable on the outside. It's when you get inside that you find a really remarkable interior. The graveyard as well is of note for some of the graves that lie within it. It also has war graves. It's part of the Commonwealth war graves. And the current church dates from 1632, although it's known that this site has been a place of worship from the Middle Ages onwards. So it's very special. And again, like we saw in another video, it has an ancient yew tree outside it, hundreds and hundreds of years old yew tree. But when you go inside the church, which I'm happy to say is now more accessible than it ever has been, and we'll talk about this in a minute, you'll be able to see that the inside of the church is really a non-traditional in its architectural structure. It's a T-plan. I love reading the visitor's book. Not only do you see where people are from, and there's guests who are very local and also from all around the world, but they are all expressing thanks for the opportunity to visit this beautiful church, which is now open to the public. Now, when you go inside, as well as being able to see the church, the people who are presenting the church to you, which is the organisation Care of Historic Churches in Scotland, actually has an information board about the film Outlander. And the reason for this is some of the scenes in Outlander were filmed inside this church. Now, this has been the saving of the church. This is the reason why the doors are now open and repairs have been made to keep the church structurally sound, because Outlander has been such a popular show that many people have been inspired to visit Scotland because of it. And this church, which previously to the television series was unable to fund its own repairs, has now been able to collect donations from people all around the world. The next part of this film is just a speeded up version of my visit, exploring the interior of Tibbermore Church. As you can see, it's this T-shape, which means the altar is in the centre, and there are raised positions for the congregation to sit on both the left and the right, as well as straight ahead. So if we go up straight ahead, you can see the lovely old pews with their numbers and letters marking the seat positions. The view out the window, beautiful Perthshire. And then you can see this would be the view from the congregation sitting here down to the pulpit. It is a very unusual church structure for a Scottish church. I believe in the Outlander film it was actually used as a courthouse. I have to admit I haven't ever watched Outlander, although pretty much everybody I teach has, so is maybe something I should put on my list. I know people who love the series really love visiting places like this to see the story come alive in a way. So here we're just descending the stairs, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the stained glass windows, which are also remarkable. There are 2 replacement windows in the church, and they are both commemorating the First World War. They were designed by Oscar Patterson, and unusually one of the windows very clearly commemorates women who served in the Great War. And let's just have a look here at the text, which has the date of the First World War and the text, those women which laboured. And then underneath a fairly religious looking image traditional in a sense, except she's holding the Scottish flag as well. So it's of note because it is absolutely unusual to have a memorial to women such as this. Okay, let's head back outside now into the sunshine of autumn. I want to show you the graveyard because it is truly beautiful. In Scotland, unlike some cultures, your burial is permanent. I know in many places you kind of rent space in a graveyard, and after a certain length of time your remains are dug up and moved on, which is something that we find quite strange as a concept in our culture. So the people who are buried here would be largely people connected to the parish, local people. And so, as you can see, some of the graves are in quite poor condition, and a few are marked with tape as being structurally unsound and dangerous, but many of them have already toppled over, are overgrown as well. This one I thought looked interesting because it copies the style of a Celtic cross, which itself is a much older style, but it's used frequently in graveyards in Scotland. So this one's about 150 years old. The Celtic crosses themselves date much earlier, from 8th century in Scotland and Ireland. So travelling back across now to see the church, I discovered this lovely gravestone, which is carved with a resting pigeon or dove sitting upon it. I just filmed it in the round because I wanted to share just what a lovely carving it is. The bird is very lifelike, realistic. It's accurate in its size, and the way that it's resting on the stone is, in my mind, just an absolutely gorgeous piece of sculpture. And something really nice about having this living creature represented in a graveyard. Walking back now into the second part of the graveyard, and you can see on the exterior of the church building there really is some damage. The roof has a lot of damage too. The fundraising for this church is by no means complete, and to use an expression in English, done and dusted. There's still a lot of work to do to restore this church to the magnificent place it should be, really, because it's such a gem of a building, a really wonderful visit, and of course one that we like to share. If you join us for an English language holiday in Perthshire, Scotland, this is the kind of place that we take you, not only because we believe that it's your holiday and you want to see amazing sights like this, but also because being outside and in historic places, learning English and having conversations with your teacher in inspirational spaces and places is a great way to learn. It takes the stress out of English learning, and it just turns it into something that is meaningful to you. Not just an exchange of words, but an exchange of meaning. Personally, I enjoy visiting graveyards for a few reasons. As we've already seen, there's great skill in sculpting and decorating the stones, but I'm also interested in the community that surrounds the church and the history of the people who have lived and worshipped here, both in long gone past and more recent past, and the way that their lives are remembered by the living, particularly in terms of people more recently passed away and commemorated. And I think this is because I'm an artist and I'm always interested in gestures and objects which have great meaning. So for example, here we can see two sunflowers resting on a grave. Now, inside the church, inside the visitors' book, was a child's writing saying that they had only popped by to visit their nan, which is a Scottish word for gran or grandmother, and leave sunflowers, or they just say, I think they just say, just leave her some sunflowers. So they've been visiting the grave and leaving sunflowers and popped inside the church to see it. So there's just so much information in a graveyard about the people in the community and the lives that have been spent in this place inside Perthshire. I think it's a really valid place to visit and to spend time contemplating not just this community, but of course as well yourself and your own contribution to the world. What contribution are you making? On leaving Tibbermore Church, I just took a quick stop to show you how it sits inside the really fertile Perthshire landscape. You can see the hedgerows are full of berries, going to be ready for collecting quite soon. And, it's such an abundant place for wildlife. Hedgerows like this support all kinds of creatures, insects, birds, and they're just essential to Scottish wildlife. It's really nice to see. Well, that just about wraps up our visit to Tibbermore Church in Perthshire. If you have enjoyed this video, please do let me know in the comments. These videos are designed for English language learners to practice their comprehension, as the images I'm showing you on the screen correlate with the narrative that I am describing and sharing with you. And that's what I do. That's what I do best. I teach English and I share parts of Scotland with you. Remember to follow me on YouTube if you like this style of English learning, and see you next time.